In this episode, I'm actually going to talk to you about one of my secret little tricks that I've used on so many celebrities. Hi and welcome to Flaawsome Talk. I am Kjersti Flaa. I'm an entertainment reporter. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of celebrities, and you can find all of them mostly here on my channel. I've also talked a lot about what goes on behind the scenes of these interviews. And so thank you to all my subscribers and the new ones. And if you haven't done that yet, please push the notification button as well so you don't miss an episode. First, I just wanted to say thank you for all the feedback I got from my episode with Mark Wahlberg, where I talked about things that annoy people about myself. That feedback that I've gotten about that, and you guys were so sweet and like, don't change a thing and it's not annoying at all, and so thank you for that. It was not my intention to get like people to, you know, comment back like that, but it was really sweet of you, so I really appreciate that. Thank you. Also, thank you to everyone who watched the episode with Nelson Aspen, my colleague from Australia, who is a showbiz host and an author, and he shared a lot of juicy stories from behind the scenes of his interviews with big celebrities. So if you did miss that episode, I will link it below so you can go and watch it after you've seen this one. In this episode, I'm actually going to talk to you about one of my secret little tricks that I've used on so many celebrities to make them open up to me. So I use celebrities against each other. You know, I will tell someone that someone else said this to me, and then they have to talk about it too, because they don't want to feel worse than the other celebrity who actually talked about it. Okay, let's clear this up. One of my main goals when I do interviews is to get something new out of the celebrity, get them to tell me something that they may have not talked to anyone about before, you know, create a good story and to create good entertainment for the viewers, for you guys. And also I want to make it enjoyable for them and for me and for everyone watching. So I always try to dig a little bit deeper and try to ask a little different questions than everyone else. And sometimes I will use other interviews as a base for the interviews that I am making. Because if a celebrity, for example, have talked about something about themselves in another interview, I can use that and say, you know, you talked to them about that, so why don't you talk to me about it too? So some of the interviews I showed here haven't been perfect in any way, but this concept that I've used a lot of the times in interviews have always worked. Okay, so this is how it went down. When I was interviewing Robert Redford a few years ago, I had read an article about him in the New York Times where he talked about his looks and how he kind of felt that got in the way of his acting. And I thought, if I, you know, refer to the article in New York Times, he can't tell me that, oh, I don't want to talk about that, if I say you already talked about it in the New York Times, which is a very respectful newspaper, you know. So I wanted him to comment on it. So this is what I did.
So I read this article in New York Times this weekend about you, and there was something that I thought was quite interesting, that you did not like the fact that people call you a sex symbol. Why?
Well, I wouldn't say I didn't like it. I'd be a little crazy not to like. I just wasn't. I was surprised by it. Then I kind of liked it for a short while. It was just different, and I was trying to understand why. I didn't want to spend time thinking about why. But then it got to be a little difficult, because I considered myself an actor, and I was an actor that was very concerned about craft, that when you play a character, you try to deliver performance as that character, including subtleties. But when somebody is overlooking that and just looking at the way you look, that can wear itself out, that can wear thin. And I did begin to feel that was getting too much attention. And that surprised me, because it went on too long.
And it's still going on, or?
I don't know, you tell me.
I think so.
Okay, so Robert Redford is very charming. There's no doubt about it. I really loved his answer, and he's kept elaborating a little bit too, you know, which means that I got a little more story from than the New York Times. And then my new trick was that now I've spoken to Robert Redford about this, so why won't other good-looking actors in Hollywood comment on this as well? Maybe they feel the same way. So when I met Charlie Hunnam, who is one of my favorites all-time actors, he's the sweetest. I mean, he's so sincere and so lovely. So I wasn't worried about interviewing him at all. But so I did use this technique on him too. And I said, I spoke to Robert Redford about this. What do you feel about it? And then he couldn't say, oh, I don't feel that way and I can't talk about it, because he knew that Robert Redford had talked about it, who's a legend, So then you should be able to talk about it too, right? Anyways, this is how that went.
Being such a good-looking guy, you are. Do you sometimes feel... I spoke to Robert Redford about this, and he's like, sometimes I feel it's so much attention on the looks that it takes away the attention from what I'm actually doing in the acting. Have you thought about that, or is there something...
Listen, it's a visual medium, and I think that anybody who has a somewhat sophisticated understanding of how Hollywood works would be foolish to feel anything but gratitude for being handsome, because it just allows us, it affords us those opportunities. It's like a foot in the door, because Hollywood's looking for handsome men and beautiful women. But what you have to understand is that is just the foot in the door. Then you have to deliver, and there has to be some sort of heart and substance, and you have to come with a skill set to back that up. Otherwise, it's going to be a short-lived run. Occasionally it'll feel reductive to be relegated to, in people's perception, just being a pretty boy. But I also understand that it just actually speaks more to a lack of understanding on their part of actually what it entails to put a performance together. And so I don't view myself that way, so it doesn't really have any effect on me that other people might perceive me that way. Everyone's got their own opinion. I don't really care. I really don't. You have to, I think, in order to preserve any sort of sanity, you have to keep your own counsel. In any industry or any vocation that's in the public eye, you have to have a very strong sense of who you are, and cannot allow that to be dictated by other people's perceptions of you, because then you'll go down the rabbit hole, and it can be very, very corruptive.
Isn't he just the nicest guy ever? I actually met him at Toronto Film Festival on a red carpet there, and he stopped, and I think he spoke to me for about 10 minutes. I've never experienced anything like that before. He is just such a wonderful human being. And it's so sad that I haven't seen him have like any big hits like in the theaters yet. I've seen so many movies with him and TV shows, but they never take off. And it really annoys me, because I really want to see him on the screen, and because he's such a genuinely nice person to interview. Okay, so next up was Sam Heughan. I thought, I'm going to ask him the same thing, because after he was in Outlander, if you watch that TV show, he has his shirt off a lot. And he's very sexy in that TV show. And a lot of women talked about it, and there was so much focus on his looks. So I wanted to hear his opinion on this.
So I heard yesterday all the women were talking about your looks all the time.
Oh, they were?
Yes, and I was wondering, do you feel... Nice? No, they're just saying nice things. I spoke to Robert Redford about that once, and he said that, being like called a sex symbol for him was kind of like, he felt that it got in the way.
That's really interesting. I mean, I think the same was with DiCaprio. He was, very aware of how good looking he was when younger in Titanic, and I think he tried to move away from those kind of roles. I don't know. I mean, I'm just starting out in my film career, and I feel like I've got a wealth of characters that I've played on stage or in TV drama. So I feel like, I don't think anyone's going to typecast me just yet. And I'm getting older anyway, so it's all good. It's a strange industry, because I think if we were to do the other thing about women and talk about their looks all the time and not their talent, we would probably be shot down a little bit. But I find it as a compliment, and it's all, it's good-natured, and I think ultimately I hope people enjoy the work that I do, and if they enjoy the way we look, it's just an added bonus.
He is one of the nicest guys too, right? Such a lovely guy. After this interview, I posted it on YouTube, and he tweeted about it, and he said, check out my lovely interview with Kjersti Flaa. I mean, how amazing is that? So for me to hear that someone that I interviewed really enjoyed it, that's just like the nicest thing I can ever hear. It's like music to my ears. So still, thank you, Sam Heughan, for that. Okay, so then I was interviewing Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine for Star Trek, and I thought, I'm gonna ask them too. And I don't know if they like the questions, but they actually took it a bit further and talked about more like the beauty standards in Hollywood, which was quite interesting actually. So yeah, this is what happened.
So I was talking to Robert Redford yesterday, and we spoke about how his looks got like so much attention in Hollywood that he kind of felt that it was getting in the way of his acting.
I know beauty has always been, talked about and lauded and since antiquity, so I don't think there's any difference now than before, really. I just think what you're seeing is a compounded need to be beautiful with all of social media, because all social media is about, a great deal of it is, look at me, how pretty am I, how many people like me for being pretty.
I think technology has brought us away from the balance between beauty and substance, and that,
well said,
that beauty doesn't have to be substantial anymore. It's you can tell by just the sort of wave of people that'll just go change their appearance with surgery, and it's just this vapid pursuit of some unattainable ideal that then gets judged entirely subjectively by people outside of themselves. It creates a kind of hollowness, It's not about integrating a sense of what you put out into the world with a sense of what you cultivate within. And that's troubling. I think it's a huge sickness in our society, actually.
It's kind of scary, the way things are going.
It's terrifying.
with everyone just walking around like this all the time.
Totally disconnected from one another. We think we're so connected because we can look at each other's lives, and we're willing to put our lives out on display and share, our most intimate aspects of ourselves with other people, but yet we're not really cultivating any substance underneath it, It's flimsy, claps,
So that's my little secret trick that I've been using a lot of the times. I've used a few of these quotes before, and if I see a big celebrity with a big quote in a magazine, for example, I remember I saw Helen Mirren said once that, being famous is very addictive. And I thought that was a great quote. So I kept asking other celebrities about it, and I said, Helen Mirren said this, do you feel that way? And when Helen Mirren said something, who's Dame Helen Mirren, you cannot say that, I don't want to talk about that. So that's my little trick. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And please, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And comment below if there's anything you want me to talk about here, or if there's anything you like, or you find annoying, or whatever it is. Yeah, I hope I see you in the next episode. Bye.
Up early today.
Oh no, girl. What happened?
Good jacket,
Sweetie.
good shoes too.
Thank
color.
you.
It's
Oh,
a
this
totally
chair
different
is a
color.
little off.
Does it like fade into like a totally like white chest?
It is actually.
Does it?
Yeah.
Should look into that.
It does a lot.
Maybe someone will
Get in there.
actually-
Get in my titties.
Do you feel like it's gonna break?
No, not if I sit quietly, but it's making some noises too.
Where are you from? Oslo?
Yep. Did you
Never
go?
been.
You have been?
I've never been.
Never.
Curious to go to
Oh, you
Scandinavia. I've never
should.
been to Scandinavia before.
Yeah, it's great to go now. August is a really good month, actually.
That's what I hear up
Yeah.
in the Scandinavian
Yeah.
countries. How long have you been out here?
I live in New York. I've been
Huh.
there for 10 years.
Oh wow.
So
Do you ever go home?
yeah, I go home twice a year usually. Summer, Christmas.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Kjersti, will you do the ID thing to start us off?
Kjersti, Flaa, TV2, Norway.